things that don't translate well. Like the psychologist had them hypnotized and was using command words to manipulate them, but
while they were in the mission?
Yeah. But the biologist had inhaled mushroom
knocked her out of it or something.
That had basically freed her from that, but she was afraid the whole time that they would figure out that she was no longer being manipulated by the psychologist.
It's
very complicated.
Hey. You're on thin ice, bucko.
Hey, you!
Don't knock that tripod over.
With the fur!
That's what is she seeming to want to do?
Who else would you be?
It's like an extra little treehouse.
She's like, hey, I'd hate to see this podcast go terrible.
Sure would be a shame if I fell.
She was about to knock the tripod over.
God, speaking of monsters, welcome to...
Here's his statue.
Oh.
I don't like that.
Okay, welcome to another effing movie podcast. This episode's featuring Price and Nathan and Mason and Dylan. Hey, we're back. Sorry, we were held by volume control by the cat. Welcome everybody. Hey, welcome back. It's we're just after Christmas. We're just after Christmas. It's fun.
Yeah.
Hope everybody had a good Christmas season.
Yep.
I'm not going to date this video, but it may not be the next year yet.
Is it 21 Christmas or 22 Christmas?
Nobody will know. Maybe it's 20 Christmas and this is just like a reverb episode. That's psychological. That's what this is. What are we talking about today, guys?
Annihilation.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
Let's hope it ends better than the name sounds like.
Is this a positive movie? Ooh.
You know, I am curious. First of all, Mason was the one who picked this movie.
No.
I'd like you did.
I picked this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prove me wrong there.
Carry on.
Why'd you pick this movie? Why'd you put it on the wheel?
I picked this movie because they're... Let me get the summary and then I'll get into this answer.
Okay. Fair
enough.
enough.
Summary of this movie, for those who don't know. Annihilation, based on the book. Southern Reach trilogy, I think is what it was called. Trivia. And directed by Alex Garland. That's not trivia, that's just a fact about the movie. Anyway, so Natalie Portman's sitting at home minding her own business, and her husband, who she assumed has been dead because he's been on the military thing for about 6 months now, pops in at home.
I think it was like a year.
Maybe a year.
Yeah, it was like almost exactly a year.
Perfect. So a long time. Long enough where she was like, he's dead. Like, I haven't heard from him. So he just comes on home. And she's like, well, that's very concerning. How did you get here? And he doesn't seem to know much of anything. And then things start getting kind of bad for him. He drinks a cup of water, which was poisoned. Just kidding. But he is dying. So he starts bleeding out a whole bunch of stuff. The hospital comes in. And then bing, bang, boom. The cops pull over the ambulance. And guess what? We're right into government conspiracy level stuff. And apparently something weird's going on in this one little swamp. Apparently this thing that they call the shimmer is going on. It's this weird supernatural event where apparently people keep going into it and they keep not coming out. So, but the shimmer is expanding and taking over, and Natalie Portman just so happens to be a wonderful expert in the field to be able to get in there. A little cliche, but
I am Legend. You can't say shit.
You know what?
Cannot say shit.
If Will Smith can be the expert living human alive in I Am Legend, then Natalie Portman can.
Yeah, he was the everyman.
Yeah.
Like every possible skill.
So was she.
Military professional.
So was she.
Yeah, she was.
Fair.
Yeah,
She's
that's
trained.
She's ex-military.
Ex-military,
biologist.
cell biologist science. So, all right. There's that.
That's all I'm saying.
She's a all right. So if I have a 0.5 off in I Am Legend, I have to take a 0.5 off here, I guess. Anyway, so she goes in with 3 of her new girlfriends there who are also trained experts in some form or another to go check out the shimmer. Hijinks ensue in a psychological, fun little trance of kind of horror, kind of not. But to Price's point, so why did I pick this movie? 2 reasons. One, because I think it has one of probably, if not the scariest horror movie scenes in most recent history, which we'll get into.
It's a big claim.
I fucking back it too. It is uniquely original and in its own execution. We'll get to it. It's the bear, for those wondering at home. Yes, it's the bear.
The bears are there a few times.
Well, it's all of it. Yeah. All of the bear is just, but especially in the house. Anyway,
yeah.
The other part of it is because it's one of those ones where I was just like, okay, the first time I watched it, it is one of those movies where I'm like, I don't think I got everything. It's one of those ones where you kind of go on the ride and you're just like, if it was, I don't know, I'm not a good Disney person, so maybe you can fill me in the gaps here. If you go on a Disney ride and there's like stuff going on And the first time you go through the ride, and you're like, oh, and the second time you're like, oh, I didn't see Goofy here or something like that. You're kind of getting more details and absorbing it a little better.
Yeah.
And I remember walking away from it thinking, I liked it enough that I want to go back and pick up the details on it, because I think that there's more to chew on.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my big reason why I wanted to put it on here, because why would I watch a movie on my own time when I can just make 3 other people watch it with me?
And I felt the same way as him. Same, but different. Because...
Caveman talk, okay?
That's a quote from something, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Because I watched it when it came out, and I thought to myself, I think I like this movie. It was very trembly ground. Really, I was like, maybe something... I didn't catch something. I think I like it, though. And then I watched it this time with a critical eye, knowing what was going on, and it did not hold up for me. After I got done watching it, this word came to my mind, and I wasn't sure what it meant until I had the definition pulled up. And this movie, to me, is esoteric.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, that word came to me, and I was thinking...
That word doesn't
really
come
know
to someone.
It did. I promise you. I like Foxcatcher, okay?
Yeah,
Say it one more time.
His brain.
Say it one more time.
Esoteric. I will read Google's definition. It is intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or
Punch
interest.
him in the groin.
You can't. Yoshi's egg is protecting me. But after I got done watching this, it just felt like you had to know so much more to understand this movie, but it didn't seem like the movie really wanted you to understand it at the same time. Unlike something like Inception, where it's left open-ended for a variety of reasons. This is not left open-ended. It feels like I'm missing something that I should understand at the end. That whole scene with Natalie Portman and the alien and dancing, all that took way too long. It was silly in my opinion.
I wouldn't call it dancing.
It was a choreographed
right.
something.
Didn't like it.
Yeah.
I'll agree with you that scene did go on a little bit too long. I did find it interesting, although the alien did look kind of odd. Like there's a lot of really great looking stuff in this film, and they spent quite a long time on something that didn't actually look that great.
Yeah, the thing that
and
looks
the
least good. Probably.
Yeah, and I think you really understood that scene. You know, in half the time you could have understood that scene. It didn't need to be what it was.
And like, strangely enough, it wasn't eerie. Like, it was until it absolutely was not eerie. Like, after the bear, after the alligator scene, after, what's her name? The crazy girl that like turns on the whole group. Like,
her, yeah.
Like after all of these,
that's
like
the
scary.
Scene.
Yeah, I mean that.
Well, just all of it.
She's the girl who gets killed, but the jaw ripped off on her.
Yeah.
All of Gina Rodriguez, that's her name.
Yeah.
After all of these like scary, like intense scenes, then you have this alien life form, like you said, that just sort of like comes to be and slowly starts to phase into Natalie Portman, and it's just like, I should be more scared at this part, but like I wasn't intimidated at all by that thing because of all of like the fluid movement,
right?
You know, I don't know.
So, and this was something for me that I found like the most interesting about this movie is that it's like, I can't say it's not horror because it clearly has a horror tag attached to it. It is meant to be horror, but it's not meant to be traditional horror, and I think that's what I kind of liked about it. It has traditional horror with the bear scene. So that being said, the bear scene is very much felt to be like, oh, he's here, scary. You hear him, scary. Stuff going on, scary stuff. Okay, makes sense. Everything else about alligator, I guess, as well for
the
like
camera video.
Yeah, the camera
I was gonna
video.
say
cool.
the body horror from that video.
Traditional
how
body horror.
hard were you cringing when they got out the knife?
Not that bad.
Really?
So
I thought that got raw.
that
vibes
one
to me.
didn't.
He didn't
that
eat
one
it.
didn't bother me as much. I don't know. Like this movie didn't really strike me a wrong way with the like grotesque factor.
Okay.
Yeah, because it stays. I mean, it's very clearly like Lovecraftian horror in that sense, right? So that's again why I think it appeals
I
to
think
me
that's
that
part
way.
of the thing that makes something like this not bother me as much as it's not trying to be super grounded and real.
Right.
Like the way he was cutting him open, he wasn't really bothered by being cut open and all this kind of stuff. And the way it's like you're opening the guy up, but at the same time, it just seems like he's gonna be fine, and he's just gonna like put that skin back, and who cares?
Yeah.
It really did seem like that.
He's a weird, like he's been changed. He's not a human really
Right.
anymore.
I think that this one, so this is a movie in particular, and movies that lend itself to this, it's like, I don't have a specific category or like word for it in mind, but it tiptoes the lines of wanting to be in a genre but not really. And it just wants to use tools of it, right? Like, I think the biggest part of this discussion before we deep dive into like the research I had to go do to be like, I think this, and go here. I'll go to my rabbit hole in a minute. But the tone, I feel like, is definitely the one.
You're going to go into your hole?
Yeah, I'm going to my deep hole.
Is that the bottom of a lighthouse?
I can't confirm or deny. But, so, the tone of this movie is this strange thing where, with horror needs to be abstract to really be, like, scary, I think. Like, it has to be different. It has to be something that's jarring. Or it's in a real world. Like, so horror with, that's like a stabber movie or like a thrill. You know, if we're talking about Michael or any of these kind of, like, movies, like, Michael's a supernatural force in the human world. This is a supernatural, like, world with supernatural things going on. So I think that it doesn't try to be abstractly, like, leaping at you scary until it absolutely wants to, or things like, again, with the bear, the alligator, kinda. But the alligator isn't even really super, like, aggressively scary. It's just like...
It was really early on, too. So
right.
They couldn't give all of that away.
It's mostly just acting like a regular alligator.
It was.
Exactly.
I will say one weird thing about that alligator, though, is she's standing at the door to the boathouse, and she says, "Oh, it got my backpack," as it pulled her back. That alligator had to have got up pretty high. Like, why would the alligator not have just gone for her legs?
Yeah.
You know?
Because it wasn't Tessa Thompson's time.
And it played with them a lot in the water.
Yeah.
You think they would just, like, do, like, a few decibels
and all
kill
four
it.
of them are, like, dragging away, I'm like, dude, that's three... I mean, Natalie Portman just definitely dies there.
Yeah,
like,
I'm just going to immediately jump into murky water.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
But maybe, I don't know. I mean, I don't live in Florida, so I don't know, like, the logistics of this. Maybe they realize
she's got Jon Snow plot armor at that point.
Yeah.
That's
like,
not her time.
I'll admit, it's one of those things where it's like, no, you'll come later. But I want to get past the horror discussion, at least a little bit on the tone for a little bit, and talk about kind of like the systematic pecking order of like how they start like slowly getting like, you know, in stuff. Because obviously it's left with Natalie Portman by the end of the movie and her little psychological Clone War fun thing at the end. But something I noticed on this rewatch was when they're in the boat and it's like they're split up in pairs, and the girl Natalie Portman talking to is talking about how each of them have their own problems and how symbolic their deaths are whenever they relate it back to that. So that was something I kind of appreciated on like this on rewatch that I didn't notice, because she mentions like, and sorry, you'll excuse us, this has been a couple of weeks.
Thompson, like, she cuts herself.
She's a cutter. She's on that one. She'd been self-harming and stuff like that. But whenever she goes. So Tessa Thompson was like in this plant world part. For people who don't know, there's a part where they're looking at all these plants that are just like, it's kind of just jarring. They're dressed like
they're human shaped.
Right, they're human shaped, and they have like everything looks like they have bone and
They've got the human DNA for bilateral symmetry, and are just making a human shaped plant.
You know what bilateral symmetry is.
Oh, you know what? There's a lot of big words
that
were thrown at you that are also getting thrown at me.
Yeah. So, Tessa Thompson...
Like esoteric.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Ectoteric.
Somebody slap this man balls. But, it leads into the thing where it kind of gives, like... Tessa Thompson is just one of these people who is just like, okay, what's the easiest way of, like, living without having to, like, die? Because, like, the cutting mentality... And I had this much more eloquently worded about 2 weeks ago when we were supposed to do this review. But... I didn't redo my research in between this time. But Tessa Thompson's, like, transition into just being like, alright, I just want to go fade off. Like, it was less so of, like, I don't want to kill myself, I don't want to die. And she talks about this in this little, like, run up before she just drifts off into being a tree person.
Is that when they went to the pool and saw all that stuff there? And she
it was
no,
later.
this was, like,
later.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about when she said she didn't want to die.
The end because that,
no, it's
like,
right
the
whenever
one
she's
that
talking
walks
with
off
Natalie Portman.
is after the bear scene in the house.
Right, yeah. So one person had already died. She's, like, already... I think she's
well,
like the...
2 people had died.
Right, she's the second to last person that died.
Definitely dead at that point.
Yeah, Gina eats it by the bear, which it had symbolic things to it, but I want to talk about
I think you said the wrong number of characters at the beginning.
Well,
there's 4 plus Natalie.
Yeah,
and I think you said 3.
You said 3 of her friends, but there was also the boss lady.
Oh yeah, I forget about her.
Which is curious.
Yeah, she
turns into like
she roll credits Annihilation. Yeah,
she turns into like a means with which to birth another clone or something.
Listen, alright, this is an abstract movie. I won't claim to understand everything, even on rewatch and even after research, but looking into it, into the themes of to the overall dread of it, right? Because I think this is one of the things I think it excels in, not necessarily in its horror stuff, and I know Price will probably quote me and saying it's a horror movie, it doesn't scare me. It did scare me, to be fair, but
so I just want to throw in, I feel like I should mention the one thing that I think is a good bit of horror that they did that is like something that probably doesn't hit everybody is the loss of self horror.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like that to me is the thing that stuck out the strongest. Like to me, if I'm in that world, that's the scariest thing.
Yeah.
It's like, what does it mean to just become a part of whatever this place
world,
is?
right.
Because that's what happens to most people there. Is they just
every
become
person.
a part of that world.
Well, and early on, like whenever they first go into the Shimmer, they like wake up in their tents, and apparently they've been there for days. And I think that's an underrated, like, scary psychological thing where it's just like, what, like,
that the loss of self is a thing that I thought was, an actual like scary kind of meta concept to really dwell on, which is why like the one that just wanted to lose herself into that world is like I would not do that.
Yeah.
I would be fighting until the very end.
Right. I would be like carving my name into me, be like, "You are Dylan. Don't forget that." And then I'll be like, "Why am I doing? That's a terrible thing. Oh my God, what am I doing in here?" But I feel like I'm monopolizing Price. Mason, get into it.
I think the part that I liked the most about this movie was Oscar Isaac's kind of B plot going on.
Yeah.
The whole time. I enjoyed seeing his story a lot more than pretty much anything else in the movie. Especially when you find out what really happened to him in the lighthouse. Mm-hmm. That part struck me the most.
I liked finally getting his story, by the way.
Yeah.
Too. So
and
like
it took 2 hours to get there.
It took 2 hours.
50 minutes.
It took me like 4 hours because it took me the rewatch to really feel like, why is Oscar Isaac doing this? Because the annoying thing is they have an affair plot, which I definitely thought was extra the first time I watched this.
Yeah.
But clicked with me on the rewatch with it.
They never spell it out.
No, so here's the thing. You said earlier that like she just assumes that he's dead. She got told that he was dead.
Not when they were having the affair.
Yeah, by that point she had.
At some point, they do deliver that message, and that's why she's so grim, sorrow, and everything.
That was the beginning of the movie when she's walking down the stairs or whatever, and the other professor goes up to her. He's like, "Come to the barbecue. When are you gonna let this finally?"
And she said, "I was finally gonna like clean out that closet or something." Right. Exactly. So she knows that he's dead. So that's what makes his appearance all of a sudden 12 months after that, or however long.
So I will say that in rewatch, the affair makes the characters' motivations make a little bit more sense. So for those who don't pick up on it, and just kind of like recapping with the audience on this one, Natalie Portman has an affair around the time she's technically still with her husband, and husband finds out. So there's this pretty much suicide mission into the Shimmer that he hears about way before she ever gets news about it. And so,
are we positive that he knows?
Yes. She says in the movie that she's like, "Oh yeah, he knew."
Okay,
like,
I didn't remember.
Yeah, so that's why she feels like she owes him, because she's the reason he went in there.
So he dies, he comes back, he's like this, so she feels that sense of guilt to have to go in there herself to sit there and kind of go through it.
And that kind of goes into the whole thing too of every one of the characters that go into the Shimmer all have
an issue,
like some self-destructive tendency, some issue like that, which one of a little like kind of Easter eggish thing is they all start to get this tattoo on them of the Ouroboros.
Wasn't that like a snake or something?
Yeah, it was like it was a snake eating its own tail, right?
That's what it was,
and it was like in the shape of an 8. And you see it on like one of the guys in the video whenever they're recording, like opening up his stomach and everything, and then it starts to it shows up on her at the end of it too.
Right. Yeah, I think it's just one of those ones that are. I can appreciate a movie, and this is more so for me anyway, because I feel like less so on Price's case for sure on rewatch. Mason and Nathan, I don't know. We'll find more about it in the score and the fat thins, but I feel like this was for me one of those movies where I was just like, there's I think a good amount of symbolism here that's actually being used well. It just took me a little bit to put the pieces together, because again, the first time I watched this, it was just like I was just on a roller coaster. Like I was just like, oh wait, I want to get more of that, and then it's just, is that a bear? Like, is that an alligator? What is this weird burn victim turning into Natalie Portman? But yeah, that little song and dance I appreciate it a little bit more whenever they, like, I was reading into it, and effectively it's just like, again, it's this being that's turning into Natalie Portman, and whenever it's first aggressive and getting into its little song and dance routine, if you will, it is one of these things where it's like, yes, it's like afraid, but it's also mirroring Natalie Portman, who's being aggressive back, until that thing realizes, wait, I'm hurting myself, as like this sense of concept where then it starts to back off, and that's why whenever it's pressing up against her on the wall, as soon as Natalie Portman stops, fake Natalie Portman kind of stops, and then they both kind of fall into this.
Yeah,
thing.
I think it's because like that moment in particular, it's like truly mirroring.
Right.
So she's pushing against the door, and it is pushing against the door just as hard, and it's not until she lets go and realizes like, oh, it's completely copying me.
Right. And yeah, it gets into this weird situation where like so much of the movie is built into this, not necessarily wanting to make you scared, just make you uncomfortable or make you feel like in a sense of dread at times. And for me, I think it does a good job of that, but I don't know. Do you feel like that the tone landed for you and however what you wanted out of it? Because I think so much of this is, if you wanted a horror movie out of this, then you're probably going to walk away feeling not so stoked about it because it's not particularly horrific. Except for that one part.
Which we've not really talked fully about yet. Too.
Yeah, I want to talk about the bear, but
I mean, that bear scene and it mimicking other people's
the vocals
speech.
thing. Oh,
yeah, like that's a clever idea.
Yeah,
especially whenever you've got this world that's all about like just cellular genetic information all sharing and propagating and diversifying exponentially. It's like, oh, you ate that person, well now you can sound like that person, I guess. Yeah. That was good. And that was smart too, because at first you're just like, what? She's alive somehow? And like your first thought is, okay, well if she's alive, you probably shouldn't trust her if she's still human.
Right.
And then turns out, oh no, that's just the bear.
Yeah, well, because Natalie Portman, in a very strange act, says, I'm going to go look for her myself.
Yeah, by myself. Yeah. I'm going to go find the body that was consumed by a bear.
Listen, there was a lot of bad decisions in this movie, okay? And we can say, like, oh, well, you know, it's the reality of it, and it's the psyche of it. Number one, actually, one of the first few things. Whenever they found like that cafeteria, whatever place that they found the video of like the stomach and intestine, they found like the routines of like all of the other soldiers that had been there before them.
Yeah.
And their instant thought was, we got to stick to that schedule. Let's do that. Let's do that verbatim because it ended well.
Clearly, they knew what they were doing because they made it out.
They came back though, right? Yeah, like let's do what they did. So, and then like you said, she goes off and she finds nothing that she wants to find.
Right. She finds the body with like the throat eaten out, which pays off in dividends later. But there's also something to be said about the fact that they could have all been sleeping and also keeping security on the watchtower instead of that little booth on the ground.
Let's be real, they could have all fit. It was the door situation.
And they all could have just been like flashlighting that. Like, I don't think that, beside the point, whatever.
Yeah.
So, it's not like they're all military trained.
But, you're lucky that everyone loses their mind from the moment that they get in there, right? They start to lose their mind, and I do like that a lot.
There's the token on the table that says, if their decision-making stops making sense, that's because they're stressing in a crazy psychological situation.
Exactly. They're in the shimmer.
It's fair. Like, I don't... It's annoying at times, but I'm like, there's a context to make this make sense, though.
Yeah.
So...
although, I would say, through almost the entire movie, Natalie Portman's character doesn't seem to ever be in any way
particularly
crazy.
Phased. Right, yeah.
All the rest of them are going crazy, and she's just perfectly fine the whole way through, minus the, I'm going to go search for a body by myself in this clearly super dangerous situation.
Yeah. Dylan, you mentioned earlier that this is like a horror movie that's wrapped in more of a psychological bow. Whenever I first watched this, and each time after, I've never actually considered this to be a horror movie. Not to its demise or anything. I think that it's...
I think it's better classified outside of horror than
anything,
yeah.
I would say it's might be like a suspense, like adventure. You know, something strange that... the bear scene is incredible. I think it's kind of scary, but this movie and horror I don't think blend very well at all. But it is a lot like Inception or like Interstellar. You mentioned it. The first time through, you're not really into it, or you're not catching all of the pieces, so you got to watch it again and again. I think I've seen this movie 4 times, and I feel like I know as much as I watched maybe the first or second time. Yeah, I know about as much.
Esoteric.
Oh, shut up, Bryce.
It's ectoteric.
Ectoteric.
Yeah, it's erotic.
It's erotic.
Asparagus.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this movie, like I said it last week, like it's gorgeous, and that is one of my favorite things.
It is such a pretty movie. Though,
and I do like a lot like Interstellar. It has like a background like grumbling noise pretty much the whole time. It has like a very like subtle. It's not a score, but just like a subtle background noise of some type the entire way through. I put this shit on just to like have it on sometimes. Like that's how I'll watch this movie a lot of the time.
It has a great atmosphere
like
to it.
Gravity,
right.
you know, like that movie.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of these are the same way.
Talk about a great movie that came and went, by the way.
Yeah, no one talks about it anymore.
Oh,
I never did either.
Yeah. Oh, stay tuned. On this podcast, it'll always come
Yeah,
back.
you never know what will pop up.
But Nathan, you're usually pretty hung up on visuals. I want to hear your thoughts on the visual side of it.
I mean, it looks fantastic. It's very... Overall, it's very smartly done. I think they did a good job on, the things that they worked up. I think a lot of the environment doesn't have enough worked up, but it's like, you only have so much of a budget.
Right.
Because, I mean, in reality, a place like this, if one thing is being affected by it, why would other things not also be affected by it? Like the trees. The trees are pretty normal trees the whole way through. There's a lot of tropical plants in a place where there shouldn't be tropical plants too, which is a little weird. It's not like suddenly they grabbed DNA from South America for this.
900 miles.
They were like
Gina Carano was
they were like
Brazilian,
a
so she just got
palm
incorporated.
like kind of looking plants and stuff. It's just like this isn't here unless within this sphere is somebody's house who is somebody who's like really into plants.
Yeah.
You know? Like, so,
That's
so
also
those,
located in the swamp.
Mm-hmm.
and it was just them trying to, I guess, portray what they could with trying to cut the budget a little bit here and there. Overall, though, I mean, it's awesome. It's really cool. The bear, like I know you say that it's really scary, but I don't know. It was okay. I think them letting you see it too much was maybe not great because it looks a little
It ages
silly.
more, right. It ages harder as time goes on. Like, this is one in, like, probably 10 years we're going to be like, But I feel like it's still so much more about the experience. Like, you hear... And, like, whenever it's, like, gutturally close and you start to get, like, you put the two together, that it's just like, oh my god, that's the... Oh! But that will, unless we have other random thoughts to wrap up on, lead into the next segment.
Well, we didn't... I guess we didn't
I was about
really
to say, feel free to touch on
about...
other things.
I mean,
This is
there's
a
like
meaty movie.
Yeah, there's a lot to discuss with it. If we want to talk a little bit about the book side of it, there is a little bit I listened to about that that was interesting. I
didn't look too much into the book side of it, so feel free to chime in on that one.
I think I might listen to this on audiobook at some point because it does seem pretty interesting. The lighthouse in the books is a much deeper place. Like, it just keeps going down and down on a spiraling staircase, and there's like a fungus mold that has grown on the walls, and it has written out this really long, strange poem just going all the way down to the bottom. And
oh my god.
there's like another thing is that all the characters are just the first book is just supposed to be the diary of the biologist, which is Natalie Portman in the movie, but in the books they are all just the biologist, the surveyor, just whatever their profession and what they were contributing to the group was. The psychologist is just what they are because they're not supposed to refer to each other by their names, and they don't in their diaries. But apparently at one point too, so this movie, how many groups did they say had gone in? I don't think it was a whole lot.
Well, there was too many because they were unsuccessful every single time. I feel like it was at least 3 or 4.
Yeah, I feel like it was like close to a small handful of groups that at least
in the books, at some point, the biologist finds a huge pile of diaries by other people that had been there that was like taller than she was, and towards the bottom had started decomposing back into soil.
No, there was definitely not that many.
Right.
Not in the movie, at least.
Well, and I think in the books too, there's like some kind of secret company sort of thing
probably
that's investigating it and is kind of shadowy and evil in its own way. Typical kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wicked
I mean,
from
the books
Runner.
do seem interesting. I wonder. I wonder what happens in the other two, and if it's something where we would ever see like another Annihilation. Because I don't know if the end of the first book actually resolves the
whole
shimmer
simmer,
effect.
right?
Nah, something tells me that they probably took a lot of maybe the first, second, and third book and halfway wrapped it in the first movie. Because I don't think that this could be.
Yeah, the way this ends, it would feel very strange to try to continue onwards.
Yeah,
with
I mean,
she made it out,
right?
But at what cost?
And it's told.
That was it.
It's told the story and given all the interesting parts that you want to see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At this point, it would be like a really bad sequel to go back with it, because I feel like, especially if you start with Natalie Portman, Oscar Isaac, you're not gonna go pump above that. You're gonna be putting in like B tier actors. They're like they're not.
Well, or if you have them come back, I mean, they're aliens.
Right. Well,
kind of.
Natalie is an alien.
I don't know what she is after
I mean,
this.
she's definitely changed.
Yeah, like she's
it.
genetically been.
There's like a thing
gone
where she
through it.
drinks the water and like it.
The rings or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's got the tattoo.
Yeah, she got a really
Right.
cool tat.
It's
She's-
really crazy to think that they would ever let her leave.
Yeah.
Like under no
Yeah.
circumstances.
That I will say
does
that
she ever
precedent.
leave that facility.
She's in solitude.
Yeah, she's the only other person who's left. So anyway, she lives over in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And it's just like
It's
what?
like, yeah, she just got to go back home and continue painting her room.
Yeah.
That was another thing I was going to mention too. Whenever we were talking about the I Am Legend and that character and like Natalie Portman's character, it's funny to me the idea of somebody who's like just this super amazing, super capable person just doing mundane ass stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just.
I'm great at
gonna-
everything, but I'm gonna paint this room.
I'm
No.
gonna paint the bedroom.
Or
It's like,
it flashes them literally playing solitaire
Right.
Yeah.
for like an hour out of their day every day.
Like you see somebody who's that good at so many things, and you're just like, you have to be doing stuff all the time. You're like, I actually get pretty bored sometimes. It's like what? But
My 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock hours, they were completely open.
no, I will say I think a credit to Alex Garland, the director, was he had read the book originally and like decided to want to direct the movie based on like all the like main points that he could recall, but didn't want to go reread it because he said he kind of wanted to do it like on the dream of the idea of it.
Yeah.
So like kind of just like time disconnected from it, not be perfectly detail from detail. Just kind of like, yeah, this is kind of like I roughly remember, kind of like if you just dreamed it. And I actually really like that idea, and I think it translates really well in this movie because it does feel like,
A
again,
fever dream.
exactly, it feels like one of these
Not a
strange
dream.
situations. I mean, a very hard fever dream. I have to wake me up.
Yeah, I don't want to be here.
Yeah, but we've been talking about this for long enough. I think we got to transition into the next segment. That's the question. I know Price is like tapping his fingers, rolling his
Oh,
eyes.
he's holding that 10 button.
Oh, I've
he's ready to
I've
hit.
got the button ready for one of us, and I
Uh-huh.
think we all know who it is,
Mason's gonna
based on the fact they've talked 40 of these 45 minutes.
It's a meaty movie. So, the question. This is a pretty straightforward and easy one. Mimic from The Thing or The Bear?
Like what's more terrifying?
Or are they going
what do you
mono
think?
to mono?
I don't know what we're
Like,
choosing.
what
Like, which
do we
one do we
do?
want to fight, or
Neither.
Dude, I'm
But
picking the
then
Mimic.
what are we doing?
okay, so I guess which do you feel like is executed better, like as a horror
Oh,
device?
The Thing,
The Thing.
I love the thing.
because I
Yeah.
think it's a lot more terrifying that it could just be in anybody and ready to strike when the moment's right, rather than this huge hulking bear. That
When
you
I
kind
think of the thing,
No.
I think of like that one part that you guys all said looked like shit, but
Oh.
he was like crawling on all
I already know.
fours, and his like
Yeah.
head was like split open.
Doesn't he touch that one guy's face? And
I
it starts
think
to
so.
melt?
He was,
Yeah,
like, trying
and
to-
starts like becoming a part of
Right.
him.
Yes.
I hate that
I
part.
still think of that whenever I think of the thing. That and Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
To be fair, I do like that
Mm.
part.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
She's pretty good.
Yeah.
I gotta say the thing is overall better than the bear. The bear is a neat idea, but it's not. I don't know. I don't find it quite as menacing, I guess, as you found it to be.
I thought it was cool though.
Yeah, I mean it's
It's
cool, but at the same time, it feels like the bear just feels like a force of nature to me. Like it gets a little more sinister whenever it can like call out as though it were a person.
Yeah.
That makes it feel a little more supernatural. But you know, before that, it was just a really strong bear. It might have looked weird, but it was just a really strong bear.
I think it's just a regularly
Whereas
strong bear, honestly.
The thing is like an intelligence to it
Yeah.
that the bear does not have.
See, of course, I'm going to pick the bear because I like it. But
Yeah, I mean,
I also like the potential for which it goes for. So, shut up, Price. So, I like that it's one of these things where, I mean, bears are, like, humans are, like, alpha predators. But fucking bears would still ruin us any given Sunday. Like,
Yeah,
barring
I mean,
unless we're
if a
well
bear
equipped.
wanted to.
Yeah.
Like, we're
Yeah, but
just
it's
lucky that the bears typically don't want to.
But a
So
bear's
bears
eventually
stay in
going to be
trees.
taken down easy by like a nuke or anything.
All right, sure, but are we nuking every bear?
The thing-
Like,
Let's do it.
The thing could be the president. Like, it's...
nah, I think you could nuke the
It's
thing.
a-
I mean, I'm pretty sure they do nuke the thing if I recall correctly.
Well, I don't
but-
know if the thing gets away with being the president. Like,
Yeah.
the thing, I don't know if it really even talks, does it? It's
Not
not
like
that kind of, like, it
It's
can
just a
mimic
parasite,
people,
yeah.
but it doesn't
It's
necessarily
my point
speak.
that it can take over the president.
See, but we don't know that the bear doesn't get there. Like, this
Can
is
we
a
go
slow
to scores,
evolution.
please?
No, now we do Fat Thin.
Yeah, fat
No, see, the
them.
bear rips out the throat of the president, and then it
Yes!
can make the screaming noise that saves the president.
It's cohesive.
Yeah.
It's cohesive.
Then the bear.
Come along!
The bear's coat turns into just suit ties.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Can we write this comic? So, fat, thin, perfectly fit. You know it. I'm not allowed to talk more about it. Amazing. Go ahead, bud.
All right. This movie is pretty darn fit. I think it's right where it needs to be. The ending is a little bit lengthy, but by that point, you have sat through what's something like you don't even know what you've sat through. Like you've sat
Yeah.
through a very big story that has a lot of different talking points. And this choreographed thing that she does, and this little interview at the very, very end, and Oscar Isaac's part that he finally, reveals on this videotape, it all just kind of comes together, and I think it's just fit enough to where I didn't feel like it was too long.
Mm.
But boy, was there a lot to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I mirror that. I think it's fit. The ending part does drag a little bit as far as the little song and dance routine, if you guys will want to call it that. I feel like it's the biggest waste of Oscar Isaac. You definitely could have got a different actor for that. Oscar Isaac has better things to do.
Yes.
You could have got a lot more mileage out of Oscar, but
Well, you could have put a B-list actor
yeah,
as him.
right.
Like, he
Natalie
said
Portman ain't
very,
kissing
very
some B-list
little.
schlub though. This is Natalie. Anyway,
Deadman Brothers.
that's got him. This is your movie.
I
Anyway,
I'm done with this movie.
It's
fit.
Tobey Maguire. That was my joke.
Yeah.
I know. I'm getting there.
Fit movie.
Yeah, I mean, same as them. It's a fit movie. The ending is a little too much time spent on it. I would have really liked to have just cut that down a little and, take that time and put it somewhere else. Give me a little bit more of what's going on in this world. The trees on the beach were really beautiful and cool looking. Maybe give us a little bit of something around there. I don't know.
So this movie's a little bit fat. I would also agree and echo that the lighthouse definitely takes too long. That whole scene takes too
This
long.
might
It could
answer
just
your
be
question. The White House is located at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest,
That's where the shimmer's
Washington,
at.
D.C. 20500
How did I prompt this thing?
in the United
You
States.
probably said Echo.
It is located in 20.
Oh, I did!
Yeah.
Didn't say it to echo
that. Echo.
Stop. Okay, shut up. Anyway, the lighthouse part needs to be cut down, but also that what nobody has said yet. I think the cutesy scenes with Oscar Isaac and Natalie Portman need to be cut down too. Just show them hug maybe one time, and just their husband and wife. They love each other.
We
don't
got
need-
Oscar Isaac. We're going to use Oscar Isaac.
We
you son of a
don't
bitch.
need all
They
of
gotta
them
roll around
like
in his bed.
tickling each other in bed and doing all this stuff. We don't need it. We don't need to know it's we're brothers.
No.
We're brothers.
Poor Kelly.
They're married. I don't know what they're saying. I don't care. It's a little bit fat.
Okay, that's fair.
So now we do scores.
Scores, starting with Price.
All right. This movie, I've been given the three pointer a lot, but the more I think about this
It's weird that
movie,
his average is 3.
I am going to 2.5. I just
So it's just below average for you.
it's
Is what you're telling me with your wonky ass scale.
we have just not been picking good movies lately. I don't know what it is. I've not been enjoying them.
I don't know about that.
God, the novice. Anyway,
I hate you.
It's just it's a little bit too long, and it's almost I'm feeling as if I'm getting a steak and I'm chewing down to get the steak, and I want to eat it. I want to eat it so bad, but it's just so chewy and gristly, and I just can't get through it. It's the same thing with this movie. towards the end, I just had checked out, and just the longer the lighthouse scene went on, I just didn't care. And then all of their ramblings throughout the Shimmer, I didn't really care too much either. I didn't care about any of these characters. They tried doing that setup scene on the top of the roof or whatever, like, yeah, we all have trauma going into this.
How long you been in the pen? What are you in for?
And it's just like 5 minutes. They're like, we really need you to care about these characters, but we're only going to give you a little bit to try to get to care about them. Then as they got killed, I didn't care. I was not emotionally invested in this movie. Even the bear scene, like Nathan said, it's one of the highlights of the movie, but still it's looking pretty dated at this point, so not really. I don't know. He'll talk me down in a minute. I don't care. This movie's a 2.5 for me.
I was just saying, I think Dylan's the one that said that was the best scene.
Oh, yes. Not me. I'm sorry. That is correct.
Yeah.
Wow. Throwing Nathan under the bus.
By the way, Dylan, here's the button.
Well, so Bryce might have checked out towards the end of this movie, but I was just more and more intrigued as this movie kept going. I spent like over an hour afterwards just like watching stuff, just explaining it and kind of going over the books by comparison and everything, because I found it very interesting. World building and good visuals, and like everything about this really hits well for me. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a lot to fault this movie for. I don't think I'm quite out of 10 for it.
What the heck?
But I mean, it's really solid. I'm really trying to think if there is anything that I would knock against it.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Oscar
last
Isaac doesn't
scene
hang
was a
dong in
little
that
overly long. I do not really like so much the whole like reason for Natalie Portman, like the cheating and that whole thing. Is just
her
like,
sole motivation is that, right?
Yeah, like that. That's kind of whatever, but. You know, it gets
it
you
was
into this
convenient,
world,
though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it gets you into this world that is
I feel
really
bad if I cheated
interesting.
on Oscar Isaac too, though.
I would commit suicide.
Yeah.
Especially with just some colleague.
All right.
Like, yikes.
The guy from Interstellar.
Low hanging fruit,
Who
right?
she apparently doesn't like at all.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, why did you do that then?
She belittled him as soon as they got finished. She's like, get the fuck out. What are you still doing here?
That makes more sense for her to be in the Shimmer, because she's already been irrational decision making for a while now. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so...
You talked down as 9.5, Dylan. That was your mistake.
So close.
Well, yeah, I think I'm going to land at a 9 on this. I mean, it's really good. It's not like... It's not a 10. I don't know.
What?
I think on a second watch that would really define whether or not I would bump it up or down. But
I was going to say, it
I
could
think
go
right
either way.
now-
says
This is his first
as of
watch.
right
Could
so.
go
now,
either way.
this is at a 9.
Yeah. I'm not using the button price.
You talked a lot.
I'm with Nathan on this one. I really enjoyed this movie. It was a movie that Price gets into, like, not liking the characters and stuff like that, and I guess if you want that out of the movie, for sure, but I don't feel like that's even the direction of the characters. I don't think they're supposed to be lovable ones that you're supposed to care about them dying. They're almost everything in this is symbolic in some sense or form. It's more so about what they represent, less so than the person themselves. And for me, I think that's one of the things where, as I started going down the rabbit hole, I guess with Nathan on separate times, just researching into it, looking into it, because I just found the lore and what everything was representing and how it was getting twisted in some way, and what the annihilation of annihilation is supposed to even mean. And it's just this breaking of the person who they were before into something new and unique, and how they storytell that in its own way into horror units and into people turning into trees. It's unsettling, it's jarring, it's weird, but I really like it. I really like all of that tone. I like that whenever it's not afraid to sit there and make things be a little horrific at times, because things that were like already... We've talked about the bear at length, but even like looking at an alligator or something, making it just be a little bit extra jarring. These have shark teeth now because alligators weren't scary enough already. Let them evolve into even more alpha predators.
They seem really playful in this world too. They'll pull you in the water, toss you around.
Come on in, guys. The water's fun.
They'll come right up to you and let you shoot them right in the mouth.
You know what? I'm afraid of like, you know, you hear about worms and stuff in Africa that go up your like your dick, and then I wonder like
what kind of parasites evolve in that place.
You don't want to be in that water.
If anybody has ever seen the King Kong from Peter Jackson, whenever they're on the island with like all of those, like that's where I see that going. But that's beside the point. Point is, I really enjoyed this experience. I really enjoyed doing like the research to learn more about it, to get into like deep stuff. I liked everything I was reading about it, and it made me like the movie more for it. It is not perfect. It is a little too on the nose at times. I think that the CGI, as far as the bear and some of the stuff that I really love now, will age and be a little bit harsher as it goes on. And I guess it's esoteric. So I'm going to give this movie an 8 because I do really enjoy what I got out of it. But it's such a meaty movie. Like, it feels like it's one of those ones I could talk about for a while and still feel like I don't even cover everything.
Oh, yeah.
And I did. So
I feel like I could talk more about this movie.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Me and Nathan are going to do a special Annihilation part 2.
I'll just let you two do it. Let Mason and I go.
I had no idea that Nathan would take to this movie much as he has.
I was wondering, because with Nathan, he always wants to hold his cards until it's time for the score. Yeah. So.
I'm also feeling that Mason may be like more in my camp, but not as much as
this
theirs.
is going to be a bell curve score.
But I think it's funny because we were going to do this last week, but Nathan hadn't watched the movie yet, so this is the first time we've ever had that happen. We were going to just do it without him because he hadn't watched it, but Dylan said, I think he's going to be on my team.
And I was fucking right.
That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Thank you, Dylan, in the past.
Hey, called it.
When I'm right, I'm right. Mason, take us home, buddy.
So I'm not afraid to say when a movie's a little bit above my head. I'm a little bit too dense for a movie like this. Especially on that first watch. Yeah, maybe. Maybe even on the second try. So it takes a few more for me, right?
Yeah.
This movie, like I said, I just like to have something like this on in the background. If I catch some extra stuff, then I catch some extra stuff. Natalie Portman sells her character from the very beginning. This movie reminds me of like Arrival with Amy Adams.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just...
A lot of parallels there.
There is absolutely no emotion the entire time from like the main character.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the world itself is really cool. But... I don't know. I don't think that I could ever read the book or listen to an audiobook of this because I do think that it would just be even wackier and crazier. I'm going to land at a 7 because I do appreciate the length of this movie and not necessarily... Price, you mentioned earlier, Inception was open-ended, right?
Mm-hmm.
This movie was definitely closed off at the very end.
It's matter of fact. It's like, this is what happened.
Yeah, you're either with it or you're not. This is the end. I hope you're done with it because we are. But yeah, so just with that point, I do appreciate that, and I don't know. That's really all I've got. It's beautiful.
Yeah, super pretty movie. But it makes me do wonder what the critics and everybody else thought about it. So,
critics.
I will say this actually surprised me. So overall, it gives a 88%, with an audience giving it a 66, which doesn't surprise me. It's esoteric. What does that mean, Price?
The more you know.
For small-minded people.
Yeah, for us small-minded folk. I actually feel like this is one of those movies that probably lends itself to people who are... Critics are really diehard movie fans because it is one of those such meaty movies that it's just like... Most casual-going viewers are going to watch this and be like, I don't know what the fuck happened! Like, and then they're going to never watch it again.
Well, I feel like it's unusual for me to land more on the side of critics. I generally am more on the side of the audience.
I think it's
movies.
Right.
I'm the wild card of the group.
For me, it's less about even being about critics. I think this is a movie for people who like movies. Which, hell, I wouldn't even put critics in that category because I think critics fucking hate movies after a certain point of time. Yeah. Like, this is a movie I think that you really have to just be like, oh, I like the visual part of this. I like the symbolic storytelling here. Mm-hmm. Like, where we all kind of have little certain things that we like about these things.
But the problem with this movie is, like, me personally, I won't ever suggest this movie because I don't want to be held accountable.
Yeah, I would suggest this movie.
Yeah. Would you?
Yeah.
I think that, like, my issue is this is the Bear movie. Like, that's the only thing that anyone has ever heard or, like,
yeah, you gotta pick your crowd very particularly for this movie, though.
And then it gets to the bear scene, I'm like, there's a lot of shit going on. I don't know that I would really...
I wouldn't define this as the bear movie so much as the weird movie with the bear in it. Like,
Like that movie with the bear scene. Oh, that's the only thing that ever...
This movie just does the opposite of what I want from a movie, which, as you all have seen, there's basically two spectrums. It didn't
make him laugh once.
There's either characters are the most important thing for me. It's either a comedy where it's just one-note characters, you're just there for the laughs, it gets a pass. But if it's on the other end, any other kind of movie, for me, needs to have good characters. And as we pointed out, even in the books, the characters are just the name of their profession. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's pretty much all they are. That is the opposite of what I want from a movie. As we will see from I don't know. I think our next movie may have more of what I'm looking for in the movie.
The Novice?
The Novice?
The Novice.
Oh, I don't know what's next anymore.
Yeah.
The Novice.
It's The Novice.
Quote him. Quote him now.
He said it.
Yeah.
That's the movie that's coming out after this one. That's what he's talking about, guys.
That's the
Yes,
one.
sir.
I don't care. I'm on the other end than they are, and that's pretty much the reason why.
Which, to be fair, that's pretty on par for the course for you, I think, a lot of times on that one.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
So, this is usually the time where we'd wind down, we'd spin a wheel, we'd do all that jazz, but, it's a funny thing, when Nathan didn't watch the movie, we had to do some hijinks. Long story short,
Just so you can hear the wheel.
yeah, there you go.
Because
It's not, well, so it did land on Kingdom of Heaven. Well, I know, we're getting, listen, whatever.
It's the Novice.
So, long story short, Mason got to pick a fucking movie, whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
Don't even ask
Yeah,
how we got there.
he
Listen,
picked a movie that he had watched that day,
Yeah.
It was the night before.
the night before.
Before.
He came in and was like, guys, I watched this
I love
awesome
this
movie.
Yeah.
You all should watch it sometime.
Right.
And then he put
On
it on
your
the
own
list.
time.
We did.
So, we watched The Novice. The review's coming out right after this. Normally we watch the trailer, but we won't lie, we did this very out of order. We've already watched the whole and did the whole review. So, we're not going to watch the trailer for that one. This is our review of Annihilation. Somebody hit Press in the balls for saying esoteric, you fucking smell.
Esoteric 20 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Me though.
Yeah, get that knee, hit
That's
that
your
bell.
knee.
If you want to subscribe and come in to make sure you get all those notifications with all that, let us know what you think in the comments below. Is this movie too big-brained and big-heady and too much? I don't want to do homework for my movie. Or, did you think this was just right? Where you priced at 14 and you understood everything on the first watch? You smug bastard. Feel free to ask more about that in the comments below. And feel free to put some suggestions. We see people creeping in to give us suggestions. We got to go watch The Raid 2.
The Raid
Yeah,
2.
you're the raid guy. I replied back and said, should we watch it? You haven't replied back yet. When you reply back, we'll watch it.
Yep.
Anyway, guys, that's our show. Make sure to tune in next week for The Novice.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't be too excited.
It's,
I hate
it's
you.
all right.